This is The Pearl. It is the cabaret club in Shanghai today.
It actually took me by surprise at how many people don't know cabaret.
But a century ago, the city had a cabaret culture to match New York, Paris, and London.
Cabarets emerged in Shanghai really in the 1920s and blossomed in the 1930s.
The city's cabarets were known all over the world. In 1950, a Mexican crime film about a mob boss and a star singer was titled Cabaret Shanghai. In Havana's Chinatown, the strip club was named Shanghai Theater. Then, one by one, the clubs all disappeared.
By the late 1950s, it became more and more of an underground phenomenon. And it was kind of, written out of the national narrative.
In this series, we'll explore the untold history of how cultural imports have shaped modern China and continue to influence the nation today.
I'm Grant Buchwald. I'm one of the owners of The Pearl, and I go by the nickname The Pearl's Papa G. Oh, welcome into The Pearl. The Pearl is a unique entertainment venue. We do everything from live music to cabaret to burlesque to aerial performances, drag queen performances.
Grant's Club is housed in this former Japanese Buddhist temple on a narrow downtown street that is being redeveloped.
It's really difficult doing cabaret in China because it's not that well known. And of course, there's a lot of legal issues, and we have to be very cautious of what we do.
When it's nighttime in dear old Shanghai.
The Pearl may be the only cabaret club in Shanghai today. But if you look closer, it's tapping into a culture that has deep roots in the city and all over China.
Cabaret is now considered a kind of antiquated art form.
Dr. Andrew Field is an associate professor of Chinese history at Duke Kunshan University. For 25 years, his research has required him to go clubbing in Shanghai.
People might think of the Moulin Rouge in Paris. People might also think of Berlin in the 1920s, which was the subject of the famous musical Cabaret.
Field has produced several books and a new documentary on Shanghai's dance, music, and nightlife scenes from the previous century to the present day.
Shanghai definitely had the most sophisticated international nightlife scene in all of Asia in the 1930s. It was, in essence, a kind of colonial city
with an American and British settlement.
The first cabaret appeared in 1916, not far from where the Pearl is today. The area later grew into an infamous bar street known as the Trenches.
And they would do all of the standard dances of that era, so that included the foxtrot, the waltz, the Charleston was also a favorite, which became kind of morphed into the Lindy Hop, which is now being revived in the swing dance scene in Shanghai today.
Okay, 要不然的话就是我大幕一开，你们出。And I don't think it's a dying out art form per se. I'm seeing it as a comeback.
Cabaret director Dania Gu is full of passion for reviving cabaret in Shanghai. After moving here 9 years ago, she now has an all-Chinese crew.
Why there's a golden age? Because there was World War I and because there was the economic crisis. And now we have the COVID. And people need a place to escape from their real life, more so than ever.
By the 1940s, there were many Chinese pop singers. Li Xianglan, Zhou Xuan, Yao Li, all of these singers who are still today, they're very famous from that time period, who were singing songs in the cabarets and nightclubs of Shanghai.
上海，它是我们的金嗓子歌后成名之曲。我们作为第一批来到这里的中国演员，也是想把我们优良的中国文化，优秀的西方文化能够得到一个非常完美的融合。
我是跳广场舞，他成績唔得字。
侬這個人從來沒動過我。
Today, the enduring cultural impact of the time is hard to measure. In a way, Cabaret is quintessentially Shanghainese. The city's cultural identity is still very much associated with glamour of old Shanghai.
Even now, usually if there's a big party, everyone wants 1920s theme, 1930s theme. I mean, this theater, when we built it, was very much with that in mind.
But over time, the younger generations of Chinese, the so-called May 4th generation, they started to embrace this culture.
If you are a Star Wars fan, you might have been celebrating May the 4th every year. But in China, the date is known as Youth Day and commemorates student protests that took place in 1919 against the Chinese government's failure to stand up to Western imperialism.
Young people should be liberated from all the restrictions of the previous generations. They ought to be able to choose their own marriage partners. They ought to be able to love whomever they wanted to.
The protests sparked a broader transformative social movement that is credited with helping China emerge from its so-called century of humiliation.
This culture really challenged the old, you could say, the Confucianist culture of China. And in my book, I make it very clear that all of the Chinese governments that succeeded each other were against dancing. They considered dancing to be a very decadent and frivolous and unproductive pursuit. They wanted everybody to be in pursuits that would lead to the advancement of society. I suppose women's liberation was a part of the credo of the Communist Party. They didn't want industries where women were potentially being exploited, treated as kind of, sexual servants. Because of the history of Shanghai as a colonial city, because of the narrative of a century of humiliation, because of World War II and the Japanese invasion, this kind of culture took all sorts of negative connotations, and it was suppressed. So when China opened up again under the reform era in the 1980s, dancing became popular once again, but it was much more of a working class culture.
These days, the colonial memory of how Cabaret once took over the city is often played down in mainstream Chinese media. Art and culture remain heavily regulated. But just like then, people are still eager to explore art forms from around the world and to claim them as their own.
If I was given a chance, that I would love to be one of those singers or dancers back in 1930s. I think I'll be rather good at it.